everybody, welcome back to this No Such Thing as a Fish Comic Relief Marathon, and we are going to press on now with our next guest, and it is the 20th guest of the show for fact number 20. Now, this is an old friend of the show. This is someone who first appeared in our lives as a little tiny hidden track on a record vinyl that we released with our first 100 episodes, or first year of Fish rather, and then came into the office to sit on our 100th episode. We had a full recording with him. It was an amazing experience. We couldn't believe we got to do it, and we're so glad we've got him back again. So please welcome to the show for fact number 20. It is the lead singer of Slipknot and Stone Sour. It is Corey Taylor.
Woo! Hey!
Hey, Corey.
Hi, Corey.
Hi, Corey.
Good motto. How are you?
Good. Look, here it is. The vinyl.
I still have my copy that you guys sent me. Like it's up with my vinyl. Yeah, man.
So cool, man. Well, thanks for being here, and let's kick into our fact. So it's time for fact number 20, and that is Corey.
Okay, so the fact that I picked was the 500-year-old man found in his thigh-high leather boots on the muddy shores of the Thames. It's just reading that, I was like, because I got to be honest, like the first thing that jumped to mind was not necessarily fishing. It was more of like, was this the first iteration? Was like this the first iteration of like Gary Glitter's family coming to, like I looked at it from like a totally different angle. Yeah. Like this was like the birth of glam rock. Right. Weird like Morris dancing thing happening on the it was very strange.
So this is we should contextualize it for the viewer, but this is a skeleton, right? It's not a very old man just trudging down the beach.
Although that would still be a great story. Like if it was an old dude, I've got my hip.
Even better in a way. But yeah, I think they found him. They're always digging people out of the Thames, bodies and weird stuff like that. But they found him, and he was still had on his feet thigh-high boots.
Yeah.
So cool. I don't think they're as sexy, as you say, as the thigh-high boots one is imagining.
No, they definitely looked decrepit. They looked like they looked like they'd been loved. Like somebody cared for them.
Yeah.
That could have been the mud too. Like I'm not entirely certain, but yeah.
And what we think is maybe he was one of these people who used to go down the Thames trying to find things in the mud and stuff like that, or maybe a fisherman or something like that, or a glam rocker. Maybe we don't know. Like,
yeah.
Well, I know fishermen. Yeah, I know. Like a lot of. There's a certain type of river fishermen here in the States that wear big thigh high, like they wear the Leathermans and all that stuff. I want to say like they fish for pike maybe, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what sort of fish is it comes out of the Thames that doesn't include chips, really.
I'll be honest, Corey, I don't think we really eat the fish that come out of the Thames.
Either. Yeah.
You can drink the water. You can drink the water of the Thames. I went on a river tour. Yeah, years ago, I went on a tour of the river, and the tour guide, he plucked a glass. He had a pint glass, and he just said, "Look at this disgusting water. It's completely brown all the way through." He said, "If you leave it for a day, all of the silt will settle to the bottom, and you're left with a sparkling, clean.
And did you see him drink this water, Andy?
No, he claimed he'd done it once, and that was it.
Right.
And he was out of hospital the next week, so it's definitely worth it.
Dysentery and Hep C.
Yeah. Well, we had a comedian here, David Walliams, who swam down the Thames, which seemed at the time he said he was going to do it quite a weird idea because it is famously a bit grimy in places. And didn't he get? He got something bad, didn't he?
He got gunged. I think they released stuff into the. I mean, it wasn't intentional. What? No. There was some sewage outflow. No, it wasn't a get your own back.
Yeah, I was like,
he ate some sewage.
He was pretty ill for a while.
Yeah.
Why is it every time I'm on with you guys, you tell me a story that grosses even me out? I mean, come on. It's like, you wait. This is like, oh, we found one for Taylor.
Hey, is it true that this is something that I only know for music, of bootlegging? Someone would bootleg music. But is it true that the term bootleg came from the fact that alcohol in Prohibition times used to be hidden in a tall boot, and that is why it's got its name?
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that true?
100% dates to Prohibition. That's for sure. We looked this up the other day, and there's nothing before that, because there's a few stories of it being like centuries before that. It's definitely Prohibition, and it must be, right? It must be that.
Yeah, it sounds it. Yeah.
There's a great documentary that two-part documentary that Ken Burns did, all about the Prohibition era, and they actually talk about that, where that term comes from. And I remember them saying that it came from people smuggling. I want to say it was out of the Pacific Northwest, but I might be wrong. I know that there was a mayor right outside of Seattle. He's like they were using all of those islands just off the coast of Seattle, like up in Washington State, as ways to get past like the international waters laws and whatnot. And so they were taking all the booze out they were dropping the booze off in those islands and then just smuggling them ashore like that. And I want to say that they used fake legs to bring them on. It's insane.
What do you do with your real legs if you're using fake legs to smuggle booze?
I think
how is this working?
I think there's a long conversation where you desperately try to convince someone you have 3 legs. I mean, if you can imagine that, I'd be down for trying to. It's like, no, what are you implying, that I don't have?
How dare you suggest?
How dare you?
Weren't there fake shoes as well that had like the feet of like hooves underneath?
Yeah,
the heels. The heels would slide out. Because it used to be those dressing, like dress boots or whatever, the high heels like that, and you could slide the bottom of the heel off, and there were like compartments inside of it.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah.
Those ones done. Is it that it looks like a cow's been walking here instead
of a human? So yeah.
It's useful.
There's that.
It's useful up to a point, I guess.
These days, but yeah, it's.
Wait, why does it look like a cow's been walking there?
They sort of there's a cutout bit where you cut out everything on the sole of the shoe which doesn't look like a cow's hoof.
Yeah. Like when you cut a potato in half and then you put it in paint and you do that. It's like that. But
you can only fit like one of those miniatures or something. Or do people have huge feet?
These ones were for tricking.
It was clowns, actually. It was all clowns.
Yeah.
Oh god, she's using it. Did you know I've gone on to like semi-unrelated fact time now, but Andre Agassi, when he got married to Brooke Shields, wore lifts and he wore platform shoes so he didn't look shorter than her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan completely fine with that. Yeah,
that's fine.
Why do we as men do that? I still, to this day, my wife is the same height as I am. However, her waist starts a lot higher on her body than it does on my body.
Oh wow!
So I just look like I just look like the shortest person in the room at all times, constantly. Even though she and I are both the same height, and she still looks like she towers over me. And it's like, A, I have a hunchback. B, I just need to stand up a little straighter. But it has never, ever occurred to me to wear heeled shoes or boots to appear taller than I am. Is that strange, or is that a guy thing?
No, I don't know. I like wearing a heel purely of a beetle boot. I love a beetle boot.
Yeah. Well, it's a difference if it's a fashion, because I have boots that have heels on them, but they're not massive, and I only really wear them if we're going out somewhere. I certainly wouldn't wear them so I could tower above my butt. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Like, I have this pair of stilts, but I think they're very fashionable, and I just think they look good.
Do you know that this is a music-related boot fact? But Freddie Mercury and David Bowie met over a boot before either of them were famous.
What do you mean over a boot?
Do you mean over a drink? Was it they forgot to take the drink out of the boot when it got there?
David Bowie was in Kensington Market and he was looking at a nice looking boot that he saw, and the person who was working at the stall and fitted the boot onto him was Freddie Mercury. That's
really?
The first time they ever met. Yeah.
Wow. So this would have been what, David Jones era?
Yeah, it was 1969. So I think Queen probably formed in 1970, and I don't know where Bowie was at that point, but yeah, probably he was early days, Laughing Gnome kind of territory.
Did they hit it off? Like, did they? I don't know much about the relationship.
They must have, in order to remember it, right? They must have. Well, no, they sang Under Pressure together much later.
I'm not sure if I met someone who sold me a shoe 10 years ago and I don't mean any offense to anyone I bought a shoe from 10 years ago, I wouldn't remember. Even if they had become very famous. You'd never work out the connection.
You, Andy. I'm just letting you know. I mean,
I'm a snob. I am a snob. But
Corey's memorized everyone he's ever bought anything from.
Just in case, you never know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the crazy thing is, I actually I've met several singers in our genre before they've eventually made it. I met, before they got signed, I met Dave Walliams from Drowning Pool. He was the original singer. I met the guys in Mudvayne before they got signed. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, when you're on the road, you just never know who you're going to meet in life, where someday you're going to turn around and be like, hey.
But you were meeting them in other contexts. You weren't meeting them as
selling you shoes.
I didn't meet them at a Chipotle or anything like that. It was like real. It was kind of on the same, but at the same time, like we're just underway on our first album, and they hadn't. I don't think they'd even had like any like attention from record labels or anything. They were still, a struggling band. So. It's kind of cool to look back and go, oh yeah, I remember knowing those guys before they like really kind of took off.
Maybe it's you. Maybe you've got the golden touch.
It could be. Well, I'm not gonna brag, but
you made these guys.
If you can just look over my shoulder at my platinum Star Wars.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're vintage too.
Are they the originals?
Yeah, that one is signed by David Prowse. Yeah, that one is actually a variant that was used in Britain. It's a British. It has different colors and whatnot. And then that one is actually the Revenge of the Jedi, and it's actually, if you look close, the sabers are flipped. Luke has the red one and Vader has the blue one.
What was that, a mistake or it's a misprint? Wow, cool.
Yeah, and I actually found those in London when me and my wife, we were just walking around, and I saw there was a place called Cinemasterpiece, and they had so many rad posters that I just went stupid. Like, so I bought a bunch of like Hammer horror stuff. I've got a vintage 1958 Horror of Dracula.
Right.
Christ, I'm sort of having a nightmare scenario of you and Dan going shopping together and spending all of your money.
And you know what's amazing? The guy who sold Corey the posters is now the lead singer of Cradle of Filth. So,
I have to say, because they fired Danny. What is that what you're saying?
Just anyone you meet turns into
totally
metal gods.
People have been so speaking on shoes and boots. People used to consider them extremely important, more important than actually your essentials. So when the first pilgrims went to America, I think we might have said this before on the podcast, but the number of shoes that were taken compared to useful stuff like rope was, I think one person had 126 pairs of shoes and 13 pairs of boots.
It just can't be true. I know we said this before, but it just can't be true.
What you're talking about there is a shoe salesman who's taking over his stock. Or someone who is so panicked about the different social situations that might arise in America. I think that's it. What if there's a beach party? What if there's a tech party?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine when he got to America and all the sizes are different. It's a nightmare.
Oh.
I need a heel for marsh.
Yeah.
What if it's swampy? What if there's sand? We don't
What
know
if I
what
need
the terrain's going
I need to give thanks for something at short notice. Wow, that's a great fact, Anna.
Yeah, it didn't work for them. They should have brought more pals.
Speaking of shoes on ships, during the Crimean War, apparently this is what happened. We sent our boots to the soldiers on the front line, but we didn't want anyone to get them. We didn't want, any of the Soviets the Russians to come and take them or anything like that. So we sent the left boots in one boat and the right boots in another boat. But then the right boat sank, and so when it got to the front line, everyone only had left boots.
No,
Is that where the phrase "act like you have two left feet" came from?
They were all terrible.
It was a terrible massacre. Yeah, it's not nearly as funny as the
All the
French
marching
one.
orders. Left. Left.
That's beautiful.
That's amazing.
Beau Brummel used to polish his boots with champagne.
Wow.
Something to try, maybe.
Yeah.
Beau Brummel, possibly haven't heard of him. Corey's very English person, but basically, who's the equivalent today? He was like the fashion icon of.
Yeah, he invented suits like what Dan's wearing. Basically, like there was nothing like that before he came along. Yeah, he was the biggest dandy of his day, and whatever he wore, everyone copied.
Yeah, he took 5 hours to get dressed every day, which is.
I want to say he was like, he was like, but then he died in like extreme poverty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know exactly. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Beau Brummel's made it.
Yeah.
Wow. Into the heavy metal scene. Yeah, he did.
I mean, I'm not writing a concept album about him or anything. I just remember reading something about him in one of the books I was reading, but he was he offended somebody, right? Like
I think
he fell out of fashion.
Yeah.
He became very full of himself, and
I think he offended the king, didn't he?
Every bridge that he had, right?
I think it was the Prince Regent, like James said. It was the most powerful man.
He basically,
I want to say he went to school with them.
He might have done. Basically, he was at a party and the Prince Regent was there with some other person. Let's say he was called John Smith. I don't know what he was, but he would have been the Lord of something. And Brummel said, "Oh, John, who's your fat friend?" And then after that, he just was like kicked out of society.
Major beef.
Yeah.
He was a real fat shamer, actually, Beau Brummel. He sort of introduced kind of wanting to look thin to the world, him and Byron between them. Yeah. And he had 3 hairdressers, one for the front of his hair, one for the middle, and one for the back.
That can't have worked very well.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if they all had 3 different styles to choose from?
Yeah.
You have the party in the back, you have some weird kind of gloss, and then in the front, it's like, see ya, something very strange.
Yeah.
He set those fashions.
You look like Joe Exotic, really.
There it is. There's the modern equivalent. We found
there
it.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So exotic. I laugh, but I actually don't know who that is. Who is that?
Oh, we'll catch you up later.
The Tiger King, interestingly. We've just been talking about Tiger Moms. This is the Tiger King.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Oh, well, there you go. Well, I inadvertently brought it all back. So you're welcome.
Have you guys have you heard of Kerdaicha? This is a kind of shoe. These are Kerdaicha with a K, or Kerdaicha maybe. These are traditional Australian Aboriginal shoes which you only wear when you're on a mission of vengeance. These are great. They're really good. They're made of emu feathers and matted blood drawn from a young man's arm. Okay. They're so these emu and blood slippers are so evil. They're such an ill omen that women and children are not allowed to see them. And to get ready for your vengeance mission, you have to go through an ordeal where one of your little toes is dislocated, and then you're ready to put emu shoes on.
You would remember the guy who sold you those shoes.
It reminds me of the Steve Martin spoken word thing, "Cruel Shoes."
Oh yes.
So funny.
He bought Cruel Shoes in the shop. Yeah, it was a stand-up piece, but it was also his first book. Yeah, yeah, it's a great little story.
It's really, really good.
The thing is, with the emu shoes, you would sort of, you'd be like, "Oh, Corey's coming. Wait a second. What's on his feet? Oh shit!" Like,
Wait, what could I have possibly said to him the last couple of days?
I think
shoes mean business.
I think you got to wear a floor-length gown on top, and then you sidle up to your friend, you say hello, and then you just through the toe. Yeah.
Actually, you'd have to go along your whole life always wearing the gown, because otherwise people would know, right? Because they just see the gown.
Say, Corey's wearing his gown. Oh no, I better run. Yeah.
What? I mean, do you really want to go on a like act of vengeance with a long tunic? Really? I mean, I don't think it's not exactly actiony,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, these are slippers. They're not very actiony either. They're made of emu feathers and blood. They're not going to hold together very well.
Can you go in your Converse and then change into them just before you can? Yeah, you must be able to.
Could you use an emu bladder as like a Nike pump? No? Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm just spitball. I'm not trying to bring it back.
I reckon the cool kids were doing that. Australia,
if there's anything I hate, it's a non-pragmatic emu slipper. It just doesn't work.
Put them to good use, guys. It's a real sales trick leading with the emu feather, because that does sound kind of comfortable. It's the matted rug that's off-putting. You'd put that in small print, wouldn't you?
And it's the blood is from a young man's arm. Yeah, it's not. He's not happy either.
No.
Well, not only that, but you have to sequester them from your family. You can't, nobody can look at. Don't look at Daddy.
You're right.
So in the 15th century, if you were to wear long boots, it would only be men who wore long boots, and that was what did for Joan of Arc in the end. So when she got executed, I think you guys definitely would know from QI, but it was for dressing like a man that they finally did her for, despite all the other things that they wanted to execute her for. And it was the thigh-high boots that was the main thing. It was like, you're wearing thigh-high boots, you must be a man. If you're not a man, we're going to execute you.
She was just ahead of her time.
Yeah.
She was the Julie Roberts of her day.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Things Joan of Arc's never been called before. Someone else,
like that was a casting miss.
Yeah, it really was. Oh, we talked about the Paralympian who has Josh Sundquist, he's missing his left leg and he has a soulmate. So I think because he realized that whenever he bought shoes, he had to buy them in pairs. Shops rarely want to sell you just the right shoe. So
it should have been in the Crimean War.
Yeah. But yeah, he put a call out to say, look, does anyone constantly need a left shoe? And someone who was missing a right leg got in touch, and now him and this pal get together every few months and swap.
So lovely.
Do they have the same taste in shoes, though?
Yes, I think he said that he does have quite similar taste. I think one of them buys quite a lot more shoes than the other, so one of them's really winning off the field.
How do you go through that many shoes with one leg?
Well,
it's double the wear.
Much, yeah.
Well, okay. I guess
yeah.
I found out a fact which is not at all to do with boots. It's about a man called Keith Boots, and he was a policeman in Yorkshire, and he was found guilty of a range of offences. One of which was keeping hard drugs, in his washing machine, and he'd been stealing drugs that his force had seized and then selling them back onto the streets. And it's just because of this great opening sentence by the prosecution lawyer in his case, which was, "What do you keep in your washing machine?" Keith Boots had over 11 kilos of cocaine in his. Just a lovely line.
Beat that.
I mean that's a jury duty you want to be a part of. You're like, this is gonna rule. What the hell?
Yeah.
Actually, that reminds me when we were talking about the Thames before, and the guy drinking the water. There's a lot of cocaine in the Thames, isn't there? I think they did a study 2 years ago, last year, where they looked at a load of eels that were living in the Thames, kind of near Parliament around there. Yeah. And then they took them out and they tested them, and they were all massively high on cocaine. So I wondered if your guy, Andy, maybe when he has his glass of water from the...
Yeah, possibly.
How can you tell an eel's high on cocaine?
You got a free one? I mean, that works. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. It's true. I remember reading something or seeing something, speaking of the Thames, how many bridges were across the Thames and how many just served as actual bridges? Weren't there like massive marketplaces on these bridges?
Sure. It was London Bridge, was it, or Tower Bridge?
It was London Bridge.
London Bridge. And there were. You would walk through it as if you were walking through a modern day street in London. Like, they were really high buildings. They would go 4 floors high, right across the Thames. We did a fact which I don't think the guys believe me about, but if you went to a restaurant there and you ordered fish, they would open up a little hatch and they would fish with a rod, and they would pull up a fresh fish for you to eat on it. It was a bizarre place.
Because you've been sitting at your table for 45 minutes and you're saying to the waiter, how's it coming? And he's there with his rod.
And he pulls up an eel, and the eel's like, oh my god, this is going to be the best play ever. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Can I get a glass of water? Sure thing. It'll just take a day, but we'll get it on the table.
I wonder how many, how much of that, well, it'd probably be destroyed by the water, but how much of that could have been found after, just through pure archaeological digs or whatever? Is there?
What, do you mean the stones of the buildings remaining?
Any of that.
I think they were repurposed. I think a lot of them were taken elsewhere, because a lot of it was dismantled. But it survives. You can go to, the parks surrounding London. Some of them have huge stone seats that used to be on London Bridge, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well,
but we need to just for a week sort of drain the Thames just in one section and just see what's down there, because
on a special time team we have pull the cork, boys. That would be funny.
It'd be incredible. There's so many things down there. There's font. There's an actual writing font that the creator threw in, so it's a lost font. We don't have it anymore. No,
I'm not excited about a lost font. I'm sorry. I know everyone below the video will be. I get that people are into fonts.
Yeah. How was your training the Thames pitch going, Dan? It was excellent. I had everyone on board until I explained my search for the font.
Is it the font of life? Nope.
Just another bloody font.
It's kind of like Arial, but it's just slightly different.
Yeah. And it just turns out to be Comic Sans.
Throw it back.
Yeah.
Oh my god! I'm so annoyed that I'm going to have to say this, but we've run out of time. I can't believe it.
Oh my god!
So quick. Corey, thank you so much for joining us, man. It is so cool to see you again.
Yeah. No, you guys too, man. When the world returns to normal, I am absolutely jumping the pond to come and see you guys. So
yes, get over here.
I will.
I think this appearance officially makes you the person who's appeared on our show more than anyone else. You are on our...
Can I get a t-shirt?
Yeah, we'll send one over. You're the fifth Fisher.
I will wear it with pride.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, man. And we'll see you when you come over here next time. And everyone else, stay tuned. When we come back, we're going back down under with the amazing comedian. We've got Hannah Gadsby.
Hello, everybody. That was fun, wasn't it? Well, now you have to pay. Please go to comicrelief.com/fish and give us all of your money so that it can be spent on fabulous causes around the world. There are many more videos where these came from, so bring all of your money and give it to us. Link is below. Click on the link.